You should come, wear whatever you usually clean in." The words, dropped like ice cubes into a glass of warm water, hung in the sterile air of the Thorne family kitchen. Mrs. Eleanor Thorne, matriarch and architect of this particular brand of casual cruelty, held the object out between a perfectly lacquered thumb and forefinger. It was a rectangle of blinding gold, an invitation so heavy with its own self-importance it seemed to bend the light around it. Amara stood perfectly still. Her hands, submerged moments before in a sink of hot, soapy water, were now pressed flat against the crisp white front of her uniform. Water seeped into the fabric, a cold bloom spreading over her chest, but she didn't move. Her training, both formal and self-imposed, had taught her the economy of motion, the power of stillness. To be a maid in a house like this was to be a ghost with a pulse, a presence felt only by the absence of disorder. You did not react. You absorbed. "Ma'am," Amara's voice was even, a placid lake over a chasm of thought. "The wedding," Mrs. Thorne clarified, her patience already fraying at the edges. She gave the golden card a little shake as if rousing a sleeping pet. "Julian and Isabel's, it's next Saturday. We feel it would be amusing for you to see the other side of things. A little treat." A treat. The word was a parody, a hollow chocolate filled with poison. Amara's eyes flickered from Mrs. Thorne's face, a mask of bored benevolence, to the invitation itself. The calligraphy was an intricate black river flowing across a field of gold, the Thorne and Vance family crests entwined at the top like two gilded serpents. It was an artifact from a world she dusted and polished, but was never meant to touch as an equal. Amara slowly dried her hands on her apron, the rough cotton, a familiar, grounding texture. She reached out and took the invitation. The cardstock was thick, impossibly smooth and cool to the touch. Its sharp, gilded edges pressed into her fingertips. It felt less like an invitation and more like a verdict. "Thank you, Mrs. Thorne. That's very considerate of you." The word considerate was a small act of defiance, a shield of professional vocabulary against a deeply personal insult. She did not say kind. Kindness was not a currency traded in this house. Mrs. Thorne's smile was thin, a bloodless slash. "Yes, well, don't get any ideas. You'll be there as our guest, of course, but a certain decorum is expected. Stay near the back. Don't trouble the other attendees." She let the unspoken part hang in the air between them. "Remember your place." Kenna moves along the periphery of this battlefield, a ghost in a crisp black uniform. To them, she is part of the furniture, a functional object meant to dispense water and clear away plates. They speak as if she isn't there, their voices slicing through the space she occupies. They don't see the way her eyes track the subtle, nonverbal cues they all miss. The faint tightening of Mr. Tanaka's jaw when a junior executive mispronounces his company's name. The way his aide, a young woman sitting ramrod straight behind him, subtly shakes her head at an offer sterling tables. Kenna sees everything. Her job requires it. Not just her job as a waitress, but the discipline from a life they couldn't possibly imagine. Her movements are an exercise in precision, an economy of motion honed by years of practice. She places a water glass down without a sound, the crystal kissing the linen coaster as gently as a sigh. She refills it to the exact same level as the others, creating a perfect, uniform line. It is a quiet performance of competence in a room full of loud incompetence. Sterling's dismissal, "Don't hover," was meant to put her in her place, a reminder of her status as a non-person, a silent cog in the machinery of their comfort. She absorbs the command, a function rather than a human being. It's a familiar weight, the cloak of invisibility she is forced to wear. How many times can a person be told they are nothing more than the task they perform before it starts to feel true? Would you endure this quiet erasure night after night, the silent chipping away at your own humanity? She retreats to the polished granite of the service station, her back to the table. She isn't hiding. She is observing. From here, she has a perfect view of the entire room reflected in the vast, dark window. She can see their faces, unguarded and raw, mirrored against the sprawling galaxy of city lights. Mr. Sterling leans forward, placing his palms flat on the table, an assertion of dominance that falls flat. "Kenshin Tech is a fine company, Tanaka-san," he says, his voice oozing a counterfeit sincerity. "But we both know your technology needs our global platform to truly scale." In the reflection, Kenna watches Mr. Tanaka's eyes. They remain placid, unreadable. But for a fraction of a second, his gaze lifts and meets hers in the glass. It's not a moment of connection, but of simple acknowledgement. He sees a person standing there. And in this room, on this night, that small act is a profound deviation from the script. The battle has just begun, and they have no idea that the most important player isn't even sitting at the table. The first course arrives, a delicate arrangement of seared scallops and yuzu foam that the executives barely notice before devouring. Kenna clears the plates with the same silent efficiency. As she does, one of the junior executives, a man named Henderson with a pink, eager face, leans toward Mr. Tanaka's aide, Akari. "I just love the way you guys are so respectful," he says, his voice loud enough for the table to hear. He mimes a clumsy bow, nearly knocking over his wine glass. "It's so zen. Back in the States, we're all just go, 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 you know." Akari's smile is a perfect, polite razor blade. "I am sure it is very efficient," she replies, her English precise. Kenna feels the microaggression land like a physical blow. The casual condescension, the lumping of an entire culture into a wellness cliché. It's a form of violence she knows well, the kind that leaves no visible marks but bruises the spirit. She continues her work, her face a neutral mask, but inside she is taking notes. This isn't just ignorance, it's a strategic flaw. A team that cannot be bothered to understand its counterpart's culture is a team that will miss crucial details in a contract. Now comes the centerpiece of the service. Kenna carries in a heavy, lacquered tray. On it are a ceramic takuri of Junmai Daijinjo sake and a set of small, exquisitely painted cups. They are Kiyomizu ware, each one a unique, hand-painted piece of art from Kyoto, worth more than her monthly salary. The hotel reserves them for their most important guests. Sterling picks one up casually, holding it between his thumb and forefinger like a shot glass. "Nice," he says, giving it a cursory glance before putting it down with a clatter. His team follows his lead, their clumsy handling a form of disrespect. They see an object, Kenna sees a tradition. When she reaches Mr. Tanaka, she presents the tray with two hands. Her movements are fluid, reverent. She chooses a cup for him, one painted with a single, elegant dragonfly, and places it before him, her fingers never touching the rim. She then pours the sake, holding the takuri with a folded white cloth, her other hand supporting the base, ensuring not a single drop is spilled. It is a small, intricate ritual, a language of respect spoken through gestures. Mr. Tanaka watches her hands. He sees the precision, the innate understanding of the ceremony. For the briefest of moments, the mask slips, and a flicker of genuine appreciation crosses his features. He gives her a nearly imperceptible nod, a gesture of acknowledgement from one practitioner of a discipline to another. The executives see none of it. To them, she is simply a waitress pouring a drink. They are blind to the quiet conversation taking place right in front of them, a conversation about heritage, respect, and the value of things that cannot be quantified on a balance sheet. The sake cup, small and fragile in their brutish hands, has become a symbol of the vast cultural chasm that separates the two sides of this table. And Kenna is the only one standing on the bridge between them. Just as Kenna is refilling the last cup, Sterling's phone buzzes violently against the polished wood. He snatches it up, his face souring as he reads the message. "Damn it," he mutters, loud enough for the entire room to hear. He looks up, his frustration a raw, open wound. "That's our interpreter. She's stuck in a security lockdown at the consulate, some protest. She's not going to make it." A wave of panic, cold and immediate, ripples through his team. Henderson's pink face goes pale. Another executive starts nervously shuffling papers. They were depending on the interpreter, a woman renowned for her ability to smooth over the very cultural blunders they had just spent an hour committing. Without her, they are adrift in a sea of protocol they do not understand. Mr. Tanaka and Akari remain perfectly still, their expressions unchanged. They wait. This is a test of Sterling's leadership, his ability to handle an unforeseen crisis. Sterling, ever the bulldog, scoffs at his team's anxiety. "Relax," he snaps, projecting a confidence he clearly doesn't feel. "We're in the 21st century. We don't need to wait." He pulls out his personal smartphone and taps the screen a few times. I've got the best translation app money can buy. It's got a 99.8% accuracy rating. It'll be fine. He places the phone in the center of the table like a holy relic. We'll manage. Kenna, standing by the service station, feels a chill run down her spine. It's the kind of catastrophic arrogance she has seen before, the supreme self-assurance of a powerful man who has never been told he is wrong. An app. He's going to negotiate a billion-dollar merger that hinges on intricate legal and cultural nuances using a piece of consumer software. He believes technology can replace understanding, that an algorithm can replicate wisdom. This is the moment the deal dies. It just doesn't know it yet. The decision locks them into a course from which there is no return. There will be no recovery from the insults this machine is about to generate. The choice is made, the trajectory set. What would you do next if you were in her shoes? Would you speak up and risk your job, or would you stand by and watch the whole thing burn to the ground, knowing you were the only one with a fire extinguisher? For now, Kenna remains silent. Her role is to be invisible, and in this moment of profound corporate blindness, invisibility is the only safe place to be. She watches the small phone on the table, a black mirror reflecting the clueless faces of the men who have placed their faith in it. It feels less like a tool and more like a time bomb, ticking down to an inevitable explosion. The mood in the room shifts. Sterling's bravado has injected a new, more dangerous tension into the air. He clears his throat and begins, speaking slowly and loudly into his phone as if addressing a recalcitrant child. "Tanaka-san," he begins, "let's talk about the exclusivity clause." The phone chirps and then emits a tinny, robotic voice speaking Japanese. Kenna can't see Mr. Tanaka's face, but she sees Akari's. The young aide's posture becomes even more rigid. Her eyes, fixed on the phone, are filled with a kind of horrified pity. The app's translation was not just literal. It was grammatically crude, using a form of the language a child might use, completely stripped of the politeness and formality required for business. It was the linguistic equivalent of showing up to a state dinner in a bathing suit. Mr. Tanaka listens patiently. When the robotic voice finishes, he replies in a calm, measured tone. He makes a subtle gesture with his hand, a slight fan-like motion, as he speaks. It's a classic gesture in Japanese business, used to signify a desire to set a minor point aside for the moment to focus on the larger principle. The phone listens, then chirps again. "He says the hand is not important," the robotic voice announces in English. Sterling's team looks confused. "The hand? What hand?" Henderson whispers. Sterling, flustered, plows ahead. "Okay, well, moving on then." As Kenna circulates the table to clear away the small appetizer plates, she performs a nearly imperceptible action. When she reaches Akari's place setting, she notices the young woman's chopsticks are slightly askew. With a single, fluid motion, she straightens them, aligning them perfectly on the ceramic rest. It's a tiny, almost microscopic gesture of order and respect in a moment of growing chaos. It goes completely unnoticed by the Americans, but Akari sees it. Her head lifts and her eyes meet Kenna's for a fleeting second. It's a look of surprise, of questioning. "How did you know to do that?" Kenna's expression doesn't change. She gives no sign that she has done anything out of the ordinary. She simply continues her work, her movements a quiet counterpoint to the clumsy, graceless negotiations unfolding at the center of the room. A seed of curiosity has been planted. Someone has finally seen that she is more than just a uniform. The dinner devolves into a technological farce. Sterling continues to speak into his phone, and the phone continues to mangle his words, stripping them of nuance and intent. Mr. Tanaka's replies, elegant and complex, are flattened into nonsensical, context-free sentences by the app. The conversation is a dialogue of the deaf, mediated by a fool. The primary victim of this excruciating process is Akari. As Mr. Tanaka's aide and junior translator, the responsibility for bridging the gap falls to her. After each butchered translation, Sterling and his team turn to her with expectant, demanding eyes. "What did he really mean by that?" Henderson asks, his voice laced with impatience. "Can you clarify what he means by harmonious risk allocation?" Another executive demands. It sounds vague. Akari does her best, attempting to retranslate the app's garbage and re-inject the cultural context it has stripped away. But she is young, and the pressure is immense. She is being asked to single-handedly salvage a conversation that Sterling's arrogance has already doomed. The worst moment comes when Sterling, frustrated with a particular point, dismisses Akari's careful explanation. "Look, Akari," he says, deliberately mispronouncing her name and chopping it into harsh, distinct syllables. "Just tell me yes or no. Is he in or is he out on the patent sharing?" The casual disrespect, the butchering of her name, is a public humiliation. Akari's face flushes, but her training holds. She bows her head slightly. "It is more complex than a simple yes or no, Sterling-san." Kenna watches this exchange from the service station, her heart aching for the young woman. She knows this feeling, the feeling of being simultaneously indispensable and invisible, of having your expertise demanded while your humanity is denied. She waits for her moment. As the executives are distracted by another nonsensical output from the translation app, Kenna approaches the table with a fresh carafe of water. She moves to Akari's side. As she leans in to refill the young woman's glass, she does so from her left, the side away from the main table. Under the cover of the formal movement, she speaks, her voice a barely audible whisper meant only for Akari. "Fukaku ikiosut," she murmurs in perfect, unaccented Japanese. "Take a deep breath." Akari freezes. Her head snaps up, her eyes wide with shock. She stares at Kenna, her professional composure completely shattered. It is as if a statue had just spoken to her. She looks at this black woman in a waitress uniform, a woman she had assumed was just part of the background, and hears the familiar, comforting sounds of her own language spoken with the fluency of a native. Kenna's face remains impassive. She gives a slow, deliberate nod, a silent acknowledgement that says, "I see you. I understand. You are not alone in this room." Akari's shoulders, which had been up around her ears with tension, visibly relax. She takes a quiet, steadying breath. A silent alliance has been forged in the crucible of Sterling's ignorance. A bond has been formed, not with a child, but with a young professional being crushed under the weight of disrespect, and it has just fundamentally altered the emotional landscape of the room. Mr. Tanaka has had enough. The courtesy is over. The patience has been exhausted. He has endured the cultural blunders, the technological insults, and the condescension. Now, he will see if there is any substance at all beneath the bluster. He leans forward slightly, his eyes still fixed on Sterling, but his entire demeanor has changed. The placid mask has been replaced by the focused intensity of a master strategist. He switches his language. It is still Japanese, but the cadence, the vocabulary, the very grammar has shifted. He is now speaking in Keigo, the highly formal, complex, and honorific form of the language used only in the most serious business and courtly situations. It is a linguistic minefield, designed to test an opponent's intellectual and cultural depth. He unleashes a question. It is not shouted, but it cuts through the room like a sword. It is a long, multi-clausal sentence, layered with nuance and dependent clauses, concerning Article 9, Section 4 of the proposed agreement, the Intellectual Property Guardianship Clause. He doesn't just ask for clarification. He questions the philosophical underpinning of the clause, its long-term implications for creative stewardship, and how it aligns with the principles of keiretsu, the intricate web of relationships that governs Japanese corporate families. It is a deliberate, brilliant, and utterly lethal test. The room falls into a deafening silence. All eyes turn to the small black phone in the center of the table. The phone remains silent. The app's algorithm, designed for simple, direct conversational language, is completely overwhelmed. It cannot parse the complex grammar. It cannot find the vocabulary in its database. It is useless. Sterling stares at the inert phone, his face a mask of disbelief which quickly curdles into panic. "What the hell?" he mutters, picking it up and shaking it as if that would help. "Talk, you stupid thing." Henderson leans over to Akari. "What did he say?" he asks, his voice a frantic whisper. Akari looks pale. She understood the words, but the question is so complex, so layered with meaning, that translating it on the fly in this high-pressure environment is a monumental task. She opens her mouth to try, but stammers. The weight of the entire deal is on her, and she is faltering. This is the trap. It was never about the technology or the patents. It was about respect. It was about competence. Mr. Tanaka has created a situation where only true understanding can provide an answer, and he has just proven that no one on Sterling's side of the table possesses it. Have you ever seen a rule, or in this case a language, used so precisely as a weapon? To not just defeat, but to expose an opponent's fundamental weakness. The trap has been sprung, and Sterling and his team are caught in its teeth. The silence in the room stretches, becoming thin and brittle. It is the sound of $1 billion deal evaporating into thin air. Sterling's face is now a mottled, unhealthy red. He looks from the silent phone to the overwhelmed Akari to the implacable face of Mr. Tanaka. He has been outmaneuvered, exposed, and humiliated. His authority has crumbled. Mr. Tanaka makes his move. He places his hands, palms down, on the table. He pushes his chair back slightly. The signal is unmistakable. He is leaving. The meeting is over. Tanaka-san, wait, Sterling sputters, his voice cracking. There's just a technical glitch. Mr. Tanaka does not even look at him. He speaks a single, sharp sentence in Japanese to Akari. Akari flinches, then bows her head in shame. She looks up at Sterling, her voice barely a whisper. Mr. Tanaka says that a partnership cannot be built on a foundation of incomprehension. He thanks you for the meal. It is over. The deal is dead. The opportunity is gone. Years of work, months of negotiation, all of it undone in a single evening by sheer, unadulterated arrogance. Sterling's team is frozen in a state of collective shock. They avoid his gaze, staring down at their notebooks or at the useless phone on the table. The atmosphere is thick with the bitter stench of failure. And like any failed commander, Sterling immediately looks for a scapegoat. He needs a target for the volcanic rage and shame building inside him. His wild, furious eyes scan the room, past his cowering subordinates, past the composed Japanese delegation, and they land on the only person in the room with less status than him. They land on Kenna. She is standing by the service station, holding her silver tray, a silent witness to the entire catastrophe. In his mind, her stillness is not professionalism, it's mockery. Her silence is not discretion, it's judgment. She saw him fail, and for that she must be punished. "What are you staring at?" he snarls, his voice venomous. He points a trembling finger at her. "You, get out, all of you, get out." The command is not just for her, but for all the service staff. It is a desperate, pathetic attempt to reclaim some semblance of control, to clear the room of witnesses to his disgrace. Another waiter, who had been standing by the door, scurries away, but Kenna does not move immediately. She holds Sterling's furious gaze for a split second, her expression unreadable. He takes a step toward her. "Did you hear me? I said get out. You're just the help. This doesn't concern you." The injustice of it is breathtaking. She, who understood everything, is being dismissed by the man who understood nothing. She, who could have saved him, is being cast out. This is the ultimate setback, the final confirmation of her non-status. In this world, in this room, she is nothing. Kenna turns. For a moment it looks like she is complying. She takes a step toward the polished double doors that lead out of the private dining room. Sterling watches her, a sneer of satisfaction on his face. He has successfully chased away the weakest member of the herd, but Kenna does not walk to the exit. Instead, she walks to the service station. With the same deliberate calm she has displayed all evening, she places her silver tray on the granite countertop. She adjusts the position of the water carafes. She folds the linen cloth that was draped over her arm and places it beside the tray. It is the methodical, unhurried routine of someone finishing a shift, but her shift is not over. She turns and faces the room again. She takes a deep, steadying breath, the one she advised Akari to take. Her eyes are clear and focused. All the quiet observation, all the swallowed insults, all the hidden knowledge from a lifetime ago, it all coalesces into this single, crystalline moment of decision. She knows what is at stake, not just the deal, but her own self-respect. She can walk out that door and remain invisible forever, or she can step into the light and reclaim the person she used to be. She looks at Akari, who is watching her with a mixture of terror and hope. She looks at Mr. Tanaka, who has paused his exit, his head tilted with a flicker of curiosity. And she looks at Sterling, whose face is now a mask of confusion. Then she moves. She doesn't walk toward the exit. She walks toward the battlefield. Her target is the ornate sake bottle, the takuri, sitting on the credenza near the head of the table. She picks it up, her grip firm and sure. The weight of it in her hand is familiar, grounding. Every eye in the room follows her. The air is electric with suspense. What is she doing? I said get out, Sterling barks, his voice betraying a new note of uncertainty. This is not the behavior of a scolded waitress. This is something else. Mr. Tanaka, who had been halfway out of his seat, slowly sits back down. He raises a single, elegant hand, a gesture that silences Sterling instantly. He is intrigued. The quiet waitress, the one who understood the ritual of the sake cup, is finally making a move. He will wait to see what it is. Kenna walks not to the exit, not back to the service station, but directly toward the head of the table where Mr. Tanaka sits. Her steps are measured, her purpose clear. She is no longer a ghost on the periphery. She is entering the arena. She holds the sake bottle not as a servant, but as one who is about to make an offering, a statement, a move in a game they didn't even know she was playing. Kenna arrives at the head of the table, standing to Mr. Tanaka's right. The combined sense of expensive sake, ozone, and corporate fear hang in the air. Sterling is frozen, half risen from his chair, his mouth agape. His team looks on in stunned silence. This is a rupture in the fabric of their reality. The furniture is moving on its own. Kenna holds Mr. Tanaka's gaze. She performs a bow. It is not the slight, deferential nod of a waitress. It is a deep, formal bow from the waist, the angle precise, held for exactly 3 seconds. It is a bow of respect between equals, a gesture that speaks volumes before a single word is uttered. Then she leans forward, holding the sake bottle with a perfectly placed cloth, her other hand supporting the bottom. She pours a small amount of sake into his cup, a gesture of replenishment, of continuation. As the clear liquid fills the delicate cup, she speaks. Her voice is not loud, but it fills the silence completely. It is calm, clear, and resonant. And it is speaking Japanese. Tanaka-sama, she begins, using the highest form of address, a term of profound respect. The sound of it alone makes Akari gasp. In flawless, formal keigo, she addresses his question. She doesn't just translate it, she answers it. Go shitsumen no hogo sekinen nai kansaru joko de gazemasu ga, she starts. Regarding the clause concerning guardianship responsibility, she proceeds to give a calm, brilliant, 2-minute analysis of Article 9, Section 4. She explains that the term guardianship in this context is not about passive ownership, but about active stewardship, a concept deeply rooted in Japanese corporate ethics. She references a specific legal precedent from a 1982 case involving Sony, explaining that the clause, as written by Sterling's American lawyers, could be interpreted under Japanese law as a surrender of creative control in the event of a future dispute. She concludes by respectfully suggesting an alternative phrasing, one that honors both the American desire for security and the Japanese principle of long-term corporate harmony. The room is utterly, completely silent. The only sound is the faint hum of the city 47 floors below. Did you feel that shift? It was the sound of an entire power structure breaking, the sound of a world turning upside down. Goosebumps rise on the skin, the electric thrill of watching the underestimated reveal their true power. Sterling and his team stare at her, their faces slack with disbelief. They don't understand the words, but they understand the tone. They understand the authority with which she speaks. They understand the rapt, focused attention Mr. Tanaka is giving her. When Kenna finishes, she straightens up, her expression still serene. Mr. Tanaka looks at her, his eyes wide with an emotion that goes far beyond surprise. It is astonishment. It is awe. He looks at this woman, this waitress who was ordered to be silent, who has just articulated a complex legal and cultural argument more brilliantly than any interpreter he has ever employed. He looks at her, then he looks at the clueless, red-faced American CEO. Then he looks back at Kenna. Slowly, deliberately, Mr. Tanaka rises from his chair. He is the titan, the billionaire, the man they all came to court, and he bows, not a nod but a full, deep bow from the waist. It is the ultimate gesture of respect, a public acknowledgement of her superior knowledge, her superior grace. In that single, silent gesture, the power dynamic in the room does not just shift. It is shattered. The waitress is no longer the waitress. The billionaire is no longer just the billionaire, and nothing will ever be the same. The bow hangs in the air, a silent, devastating verdict on Sterling's leadership. The deal, which was dead moments ago, is suddenly, miraculously alive again, but the terms of engagement have been irrevocably altered. The negotiation is no longer between Sterling and Tanaka, it's between Tanaka and Kenna. Mr. Tanaka speaks, his voice now warm, respectful, and directed entirely at Kenna. Akari, her face a canvas of awe, quickly translates. "Mr. Tanaka would like to know your name," Akari says, her voice trembling slightly. "My name is Kenna," she replies softly in English. "Kenna-san," Akari continues, translating for Mr. Tanaka. "He says your analysis was not only correct, but more insightful than that of his own legal team. He would like to invite you to join us at the table." Kenna inclines her head. "I would be honored." As she moves to take a seat, a humiliated and deeply confused Sterling scrambles to recover. He intercepts her, his face a mess of conflicting emotions, anger, relief, embarrassment. He pulls a checkbook from his jacket pocket, a gesture as clumsy as his earlier negotiations. "Listen," he whispers, trying to keep his voice low. "That was incredible. I don't know how you did that, but you saved my ass. Let me write you a check. A finder's fee. $50,000 for your trouble." He sees her as a problem that can be solved with money, a transaction to be completed. He still doesn't understand. He is trying to buy her silence, to reduce her brilliant intervention to a simple service rendered. Kenna looks at the checkbook in his hand, then up at his desperate, sweating face. $50,000. It would change her life. It would solve 100 problems. But accepting it would validate his worldview that everything, including dignity, has a price tag. It would mean letting him off the hook. She makes a choice, not for vengeance, but for justice. A quieter, softer kind of justice. "I don't want your money, Mr. Sterling," she says, her voice even and clear. She glances over at Akari, who is watching them, her expression guarded. "I want you to apologize to her," Kenna says. Sterling blinks. "What, to who?" "To Akari-san," Kenna continues, her gaze unwavering. "You will apologize to her in front of everyone for your rudeness, for refusing to learn her name, and for treating her as a machine instead of a valued professional colleague." It is a stunning demand. She hasn't asked for a promotion, for a raise, or for a reward. She has asked for a debt of dignity to be paid. She is using her newfound power not for personal gain, but to lift up the other person in the room who is being crushed by the same system of disrespect. What does real justice look like? Sometimes it isn't a settlement check. Sometimes it's a forced reckoning with one's own behavior. Sterling is cornered. With Mr. Tanaka watching, he has no choice. He is about to learn his first real lesson in respect. Sterling swallows, his pride catching in his throat. He walks stiffly over to Akari, who looks up at him, her expression a mixture of apprehension and vindication. In halting, clumsy words, he apologizes. It is awkward and insincere, but it is public. A small crack has appeared in the armor of his arrogance. The next day, the real consequences of that night begin to unfold. Kenna is summoned not to the hotel manager's office, but to a boardroom at Sterling Solutions. Mr. Tanaka is there, along with Sterling and his senior team. The atmosphere is starkly different. Sterling is subdued, his team silent and watchful. The power in this room now belongs to the quiet Japanese investor and the waitress he has chosen to champion. Mr. Tanaka, with Kenna occasionally providing nuanced translation, lays out his new terms for the merger. They are no longer just financial. "The events of last night," he begins, "revealed a profound operational deficiency within your organization, a lack of cultural competency that represents a significant risk to any joint venture." He then proposes a new, non-negotiable condition. The merger will only proceed with the creation and implementation of what he calls the Tanaka-Sterling Protocol. It is to be a mandatory, rigorous cross-cultural competency program for all executive and client-facing staff at Sterling Solutions. The program will cover language, etiquette, history, and negotiation styles. Its curriculum will be designed and its efficacy will be measured. But he doesn't stop there. Furthermore, he continues, it is clear that your greatest assets may be the ones you are not even aware of. He looks directly at Kenna. Therefore, Sterling Solutions will immediately implement a hidden skills audit. You will create a confidential database where every single employee, from the janitorial staff to the board members, can list their other skills, degrees, language fluencies, and certifications. And you will create a clear pathway for these skills to be recognized and utilized by the company. It is a revolutionary demand. He is asking them to fundamentally change the way they see their own people. The policy is named the Tanaka-Sterling Protocol. Its lead architect and enforcer, he insists, will be Kenna. Her success in implementing it will be a key metric tied to the merger's final approval. This is justice that echoes. It is not about punishing one man. It is about rebuilding a broken system so that what happened to Kenna and Akari can never happen again. Would this change be enough in your workplace? The executives around the table are silent. Their world, with its neat hierarchies and comfortable biases, is being systematically dismantled by a man they tried to fool and a woman they refused to see. The path forward is clear, and for the first time, it will be built on a foundation of respect. A week later, the frantic energy of the merger has subsided into the quiet, grinding work of implementation. Kenna sits not in a glass-walled dining room but in a small, sunlit cafe far from the corporate towers. Across the table from her is Akari. They are not colleagues or associates. They are two women sharing a quiet moment of peace. There are no pretenses here. Kenna is not in uniform. She is wearing simple jeans and a soft sweater. Akari is out of her severe business suit, dressed in a casual elegance that makes her seem younger, more relaxed. I still cannot believe it, Akari says, stirring her tea. What Sterling Sand did, what you did. Kenna smiles, a genuine, unguarded smile. He did what he was forced to do. I did what I had to do. But how? Akari asks, the question she has been waiting a week to voice. Your Japanese, it is better than mine. The accent, the grammar, it is like a professor from Tokyo. This is the moment of revelation, the quiet sharing of a story that reclaims a lost identity. I studied international law at Waseda University, Kenna says softly, naming one of Japan's most prestigious institutions. My father worked at the embassy in Tokyo for 10 years. I grew up there. I was preparing to take the bar. She pauses, the memory casting a shadow over her features. And then circumstances changed. My family needed me back home. Things fell apart. The law degree got put in a box. You do what you have to do to survive. Akari listens, her expression full of a deep, empathetic understanding. She then shares her own story of the immense pressure she faces as a young woman in the male-dominated world of Japanese business, of her family's expectations, of her own secret fears and ambitions. In the quiet hum of the cafe, surrounded by the scent of coffee and the murmur of other people's ordinary lives, Kenna feels a profound sense of release. For years, her past has been a source of quiet shame, a story of failure and unfulfilled promise. But in telling it, in being heard and understood by someone who saw her true self, the shame begins to dissolve. It is replaced by a simple, powerful feeling of acceptance. She was not just a waitress. She was a scholar, a survivor, a woman of immense skill and resilience, whose voice helped you heal when no one clapped. For Kenna, it was this young woman whose quiet attention gave her back a piece of her own history. The healing is not happening in a boardroom, under the applause of executives. It is happening here in this small cafe, over a shared cup of tea. She is reclaiming the definition of herself. The official offer from Sterling Solutions is a testament to how thoroughly their world has been upended. They offer Kenna a vice president title, a corner office on the 45th floor, a staggering salary, and all the attendant corporate jewelry. It is the classic institutional response. Absorb the catalyst, give her a title, and wrap her in the velvet chains of the hierarchy she just exposed. She meets with Sterling in his office. He is a changed man, or at least a man acting the part. He is deferential, respectful, almost timid. He presents the offer with a flourish as if bestowing a great gift. Kenna listens patiently. When he is finished, she slides the glossy offer folder back across the desk to him. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Sterling," she says, her voice polite but firm. "But I must decline." Sterling looks stunned. "Decline? But this is a VP position." "My expertise is not in data analytics," Kenna explains. "My expertise is in building bridges between cultures. Promoting me into a role I'm not qualified for would be a disservice to me and to your company. It would be a symbolic gesture, and I am not interested in being a symbol." Instead, she presents her own terms she has already discussed with Mr. Tanaka. She will not become an employee of Sterling Solutions. She will work as an independent consultant, the lead advisor for the Tanaka-Sterling protocol. This structural choice is critical. It allows her to maintain her autonomy and ensures her loyalty is to the integrity of the program, not to the corporate hierarchy. "And," she adds, "the program will be co-led. I want Akari-san to be designated as the lead on Mr. Tanaka's side. This initiative needs to be a true partnership." It is a masterful move. She deflects the personal glory of the promotion and instead focuses on the systemic solution. She shares the credit, elevates the junior colleague she had bonded with, and reinforces the collaborative spirit the protocol is meant to foster. This is recognition done right, focused on competence, not status, on the work, not the title. "Do you agree?" Sterling, humbled once again, can only nod in agreement. Kenna has not only saved his deal, she is now teaching him how to build a better, more intelligent company. Her refusal of the empty promotion opens a far more meaningful door, a door for others like Akari to walk through beside her. 2 months later, Kenna is in her new office. It's not on the 45th floor. It's a modest but functional space on a lower floor, the designated headquarters for the protocol initiative. The walls are covered in whiteboards filled with diagrams and notes in both English and Japanese. The room hums with a quiet, productive energy. A courier arrives with a flat, rectangular package, wrapped in simple brown paper with Japanese characters elegantly brushed on the front. There is no return address, but she knows who it's from. She unwraps it carefully. Inside is a small, unadorned box made of paulownia wood. She lifts the lid. Nestled in a bed of pale silk is a single, perfect sake cup. It is a Kiyomizu-ware cup, identical in style to the ones from that fateful dinner. This one is painted with the image of a crane taking flight, its wings spread wide. It is a symbol of luck, longevity, and soaring spirit. Tucked beside it is a small, thick card. On it, a few lines of calligraphy, handwritten by Mr. Tanaka himself. "Kenna-san," it reads. "A vessel is defined by what it is designed to hold. Some are designed for water, some for tea, and the finest for sake. But we often mistake the vessel for the contents. Thank you for reminding us of the value of what is held within." She picks up the cup. It is light and delicate in her hand. She remembers the feeling of serving with these cups, the weight of the tray, the invisibility of her uniform. Then she was just the vessel, the functionary tasked with handling the expensive object. Now the object has been given to her as a tribute. Its meaning has been completely transformed. It is no longer a symbol of her servitude, but a testament to her worth. It is not an object of labor, but a token of her identity, her knowledge, her spirit. Did the object's meaning change for you too? The journey from a crowded tray to this single, honored place on her desk is the story of her own journey from being invisible to being seen. She places the cup on the corner of her desk, not on a shelf like a trophy, but in her workspace where she can see it every day. It is a quiet, constant reminder of where she came from, and of the quiet power that resides not in the role you are given, but in the person you have always been. She looks at it, a small smile on her face, ready for the work that lies ahead. 6 months have passed. The Tanaka-Sterling protocol is fully operational. The Hidden Skills Audit has unearthed a wealth of unexpected talent within the company, a mailroom clerk who is a certified accountant, a security guard who is a published poet, a cafeteria worker who is a chess grandmaster. The culture of the company is slowly, seismically, beginning to shift. The final scene takes place in a corporate training room. Kenna stands before a new class of C-suite executives, the next generation of leaders at Sterling Solutions. She is not dressed in a power suit or a uniform. She is wearing a simple, elegant navy blue dress. She looks comfortable, poised, and completely in command of the room. On the lectern in front of her sits the single sake cup, the one with the crane taking flight. She begins her session not with a slideshow or a business cliché, but with a story. She tells them about a dinner, about a failed negotiation, about a moment of profound misunderstanding. She doesn't use names. She doesn't place blame. She presents it as a case study in corporate blindness. Every day, she says, her voice calm and clear, resonating through the silent room, we interact with people. We see their titles, their uniforms, their functions. We see the vessel, and we make assumptions about what is inside. She picks up the small cup, holding it gently in the palm of her hand. This is a very valuable object, she continues, but its true value is not in the clay or the paint. Its value is in the tradition it represents, the skill of the artist who made it, and the respect it is meant to convey. Its value is in its story. She places it back on the lectern. The same is true for the people you will lead. Their true value is not in their job title. It is in their history, their hidden skills, their unique perspective. Your job is not to assume. Your job is not to command. Your job is to see. The executives are silent, their faces rapt, attentive. This is not the kind of training they are used to. Kenna has brought a quiet revolution into the heart of the machine. She concludes her remarks, and a genuine, respectful applause fills the room. She gives a small, gracious nod. As the executives begin to gather their things, one young woman approaches the lectern, her eyes fixed on the sake cup. "That was the most important lesson I've learned since I got here," the young executive says. Kenna smiles. "Then the work is just beginning." The room has changed. The company has changed. The legacy is not a plaque on the wall or a press release. It is a new way of seeing passed from one person to another. It's a quiet, profound, and lasting form of justice. What is the one lesson you will carry with you from a story like this? The question lingers in the air as Kenna looks out at the room, no longer an invisible servant, but a respected architect of a more human way of doing business.